Okay, Okay, check-in time natin ngayon ay medyo na-delay ang programa natin, no? 26 minutos pasado alas 8. Okay, gabi ng Martes, 9 po ng Enero 2023. Okay, good evening. Magandang gabi sa inyo. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Kumusta kayo? Okay, dito naman tayo sa programa Halo-Halo Special Opinion Balita, di ba pa? Okay, kasama sa Serbisyo Publiko Tinig ng Mamamayan at saka itong sumbungan ng mamamayan, no? Okay, pakinggan natin ang sumbong po ni Tarhata Abdul Karim ng Cotabato City, no? Okay, go ahead. Okay, ready ka na?
Hello?
Ready ka na?
Yes, sir.
Ready ka na?
Opo,
Okay, online ka na. Sige na. Unahin mo sa'yo kasi uwi ka. Malayo ka.
Okay, maraming salamat, sir. Gusto nyo din ng gabi po sa lahat ng ating pagsisimisi sa ADLSNTV na kasi gusto ng mamamayan sa kapatisiban at sa iba pang branch nito. So, assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. At sa ating ulit sa ating area of responsibility, official ngayon ang sinisigaw ng mga kamag-anak ang kaibigan isang masina na may-ari umano ng silalang karinderya sa City North Cotabato. Ang sinasabing karinderya ay isang masisap na kainan sa City North Cotabato na kung tawagin ay City Halal Karinderya. Ito ay nasa pagilamang ng National Highway at sa harapan ng Municipal Plaza sa nasabing lugar. So, ayon umano'y sa informasyon na nabalitaan, unang binail ang mismong may-ari ng nasabing karinderya at ito ay sa katauhan ni Becky Kadulong sa Pilipinas kung saan nakuhapas o manin sa kanya ng mga suspect ang perang sinita nito mula sa umaga hanggang tanghali. So, sinangay lahat, kinuha ang pera ng naturang
Karinderya.
Biktima, at pagkatapos nito ay hindi pa nakontrito ang suspect at ipito nilang rin, no? So, nang nakita umano ng anak ng ito si pangalan ay Jenay na namatay na ang kanyang inang ay sinabyan ito hinabol ang mga suspect at ito rin ay binayar rin nakakasala rin, ano? So, hindi rin siya nakawala sa kalaban na at pagkus ay binayar rin ito ng mga salarin, ano? At sinadyang dinala sa ospital ang mga biktima ng magtuna at ngayon sa kasamang palad ay dumating na patay na itong dalawang mobilado, no? So, they ended up dahil sa kanilang mga sugat sa kanilang katawan, no? So, kaya naman itong biktima si Betty ay humigit na isang taon na, no? Nagpapatakbo ito ng kanyang kalindero. Kasama nito si Jonas at palagi ito kumakain ng mga bolero, maging Kristiyano man o Muslim dahil ito ay kakaibahan sa mga pakain ng kanyang luto. No? So, si Nano Jesse naman yun ay ang tawag sa kanyang mga susi ay Nano Jesse. No? So, siya ay kapatid ni Dr. Robert Padulong at may-ari ng Padulong Hospital sa sa Tabato na pinagbakal sa din ilang taon na ang nakalipas. So, so ngayon ay siya ang daw ng mga kamag-anak nito, maging ang mga kaibigan dahil sa sila ay naging biktima pa rin ng pamamarila, no? Pamamaritay. At wala silang alam kung ano na naging kalaban ito sa kanilang lugar. No? So, kaya kailangan at karoon ng space ito dahil hindi lang pala itong mag-ina ang nabalin. Mismo ang kanyang kapatid na si Dr. Robert Padulong na may-ari ng Padulong Hospital ay pinatay rin ng ilang taon ng kalikalitan sa atin.
So, patay sa pamamari. Ano yan? Robbery? Robbery ba yan?
Kaya pinatay ito at inuha ang kanyang pera ng kinita hanggang tanghali. Wala umaga hanggang tanghali. At yun na nahulog na rin sa robbery dahil pagkatapos nito ay kinuha nga rin ang kanyang pera.
Okay, robbery.
At sa iba pang ulat,
Hold up.
magbubukas na ang safety mall dito sa lungsod na Cotabato ngayong taon 2024. Ito ang target ng pamunuan ng CCC na bubuktas na ito, no? At ating mapag-alaman din sa page ni Bruce Matabanaw, nakabay ng pagbisita niya sa mga opisina o opisyalis ng CCC sa kanyang tanggapan lang at sabi pa ngayon pa sa CCC na mairing mabuksan sana ang grocery section, no? Ngunit nabago itong usapan nito dahil pananon sa palistasan ay nagbinabuti na ito ang sabay na umano lamang itong buksan kasama ng mga ibang establishment at hindi lang itong grocery section. So, sa mga araw nito, nagsimula ngayon at sinimula nito yung pagtanggap ng mga application letter para sa mga gustong mag-edit sabi mo, sinimula dito sa lungsod ng Cotabato. Sa mga applicants, maging mga tenants o mga business owners at iba't ibang stores, no? Mula sa at iba't ibang sikat na mga brand, no? So, sa mga gusto mag-apply, hindi ko silang magpunta at makapag-apply sila dito as early as possible, no? So, sa December 2024 na, sa December 2024 ay na magbubukas ng CCC Mall sa Cotabato, Sir Alex. At hindi tayo nakakamili ay ito yung pinakamalaki na CCC sa buong Mindanao na may CCC brand.
Oh, no, maganda.
So, ipapatuloy ng sinang-balita at sa karagdagang balita. So, ngayon ay nais ng Ministry of Health na mag-participation sa mga pinuno ng rehiyon upang lalo pang mahusay ang kaalaman sa kalusugan sa pag-iingat. Kaya, Kode Sabo ay nagpagawa ng coordination meeting ng sa Bansuratan ng Muslim ano? Kahit ipapatagpapang magkipagpanipuesta sa mga pangunang siya at committee ng rehiyon tulad ng Dawat Committee, Bangsamoro Darosista, Alatul Ulama, Madaris at mga gawain masjid para mapahusay ang literacy sa ban. Ang sabing tulong ng koordinasyon na ginala sa isang mahalagang sandali ay nagbigay din sa nakaapurahan ng pagsasakulid ng kamalayo sa kalusugan at edukasyon sa loob ng komunidad ng Baltimore sa pagkakakilala sa mga influential papel ng mga institusyon panrehiyon. Ang Ministeryo ng Kalusugan o MOA ay naglabas na ng isang progresivong plano upang gamitin ng mga masjid bilang mga safety na para sa mga inisyatiba sa edukasyon sa kalusugan. So, binigyan din ng paunang pangaarang nito ang kahalaga ng pakikipag-ugnay ng mga katutubo sa pag-ubog ng mga resulta ng pang-publikong kalusugan. Ang pamamagitan umano ng pagsasama-sama ng mga lakas ng mga profesional na pangangalagang sa kalusugan at mga pinunuloy Muslim. Ang inisyatiba ay naglalayong lumikha ng isang maayos at mahusay na kaalaman ng komunidad na inuuna ang kalusugan at kagalingan ng kanyang mamamayan.
Go ahead.
Ang ministeryo ay nagbalangkas ang network na estratehiya na ipapatupad sa pakikipagtulungan sa mga komite ng rehiyon. Kabilang dito ang pagbuo ng mga material ng kurikulum na nagkatuon sa kalusugan batay sa pitong malusog na prioridad na lugar na departamento ng kalusugan, mga seksyon sa pagsasanay para sa mga libre ng rehiyon sa mga paksang may program sa kalusugan at ang pagsasama-sama ng mga kampanya pagkampanin sa kamalayan at sa kalusugan na pananaw sa Islam sa bawat panalangin sa Biyernes o araw ng Biyernes. Ang sabing pagtitipon ay dinuluhan din ito ng presentation ng Bangsamoro Information Office or BAYO, Bangsamoro Youth Commission o BYC, at ang Bangsamoro Planning Development Authority o BCDA. Na binibigyan din ang strategikong pagpaplano at pagsisilahok ng sektor ng kabataan at sa health literacy initiative. Sama-samang pagsisikot nito ay nagalain hindi lamang upang agarang ng sigulahan na alalagaan sa kalusugan kundi pati na rin ang maglatag ng batayan para sa ipapanatili at nababanat ng mga kasanayan sa kalusugan sa iyon. Habang ang Ministeryo naman ng kalusugan ay tumusulong sa walang katulad na pagkikipagtulungan nito ang sinagsamang na pagkikisap ng mga entity ng resolution o informasyon at nakatuon sa kabataan at katahanda upang lumikha ng pagbabagong epekto sa kalaman sa kalusugan sa inyong Bangsamoro. Okay. So, sorry.
Go ahead.
So, ang inklusibong pamamaraan ito ay nasa magkakakdagang isang pamarisan para sa inaharap ng mga inisiatiba sa kalusugan at binigyan ng mga sumidod na magpapakita ng lakas na magmula sa pagkakaisa sa pagtugol sa mga hamon sa kalusugan. Samantala sa ating ulat ngayong gabi, nagkaroon ng blood rating o blood donation ngayong araw. Noong 2024, mula ito ng umaga hanggang panghali. Ito ay ginanap sa Barangay Hall RS12, Cotabato City, Bag. At ito ay sa pangunguna ni Honorable Councilor Lisa Kayusing Ayunan ng naturang barangay. At inuwaman dito sa lungsod ng Cotabato. So, ang tema dito ay Give Blood and Save Lives. Yan ang tema na magkikita mo sa patuloy ng naturang barangay. So, ang hindi kumulang sa act ng certification o patlong po, ang process nila o nasipa nila napaka-arid world of blood donation. At bawat magbibigay ng dugo ay may nakagahang may breakfast, may pakla, may merinda, at iba pang kabunuhang makainggani sa kanila. At nanawa sa huling mensahe ni Kap Minisa Payusing Ayunan, nananawagan ng kapitanan na huwag na panipaniwala sa mga ata-ata na sila ay mamamatay tao kasi may mga petty account at mga nananakot at maraming activities sa kanilang lugar. Panawagan niya na huwag matakot ng magdunit at huwag rin magpanik na magpadunit ng kanyang dugo para din sa kanilang kalusugan. At magpapatulong ito, magpapatulong ito upang makaibak ng dugo sa Cotabato Regional Medical Center, sa Cotabato Regional and Medical Center, at kung sakaling may mga nangyayan sa kanilang barangay ng dugo, ay matutungan ay matutugtong sa agad pagkat sa CRNC ito, in-embark or dito yung blood bank. Ayon pa sa Minisa Ayunan ay nasaloob din ng ayuda ang Vice Mayor ngayong araw dito sa Cotabato, particularly sa RS12. Ito ay nagbigay ng ayuda ng mga bigas at iba pa, lalo na sa mga senior citizens. Yes,
Okay, naputol ka na, Tata. Okay, naputol ka. Ayan. So, baka tatawag ulit si Tata. Okay? Antayin natin na makatatawag ulit, no? Ito na. Okay, balik natin si Tata, no? Okay. Go ahead. Naputol ka.
Naputol ang ating tawag. Ang asahan sa kawala doon na ang ipakaikat Minisa na Ayunan ay nasunod ng ayuda ang Vice Mayor ng Cotabato City kanina na nagbigay ng bigas at iba pa at iba pa rin na kailangan ng mga sinisip sa Barangay RS12 dito sa lungsod. So far yung meron natin ulat, ano?
Okay.
Okay, maraming salamat. Mula dito sa lungsod ng Cotabato para sa relationship lang. Servicio Publico Pinit ng mga na ako sa Labinsay, the private correspondent, editor on ADLSNTV Nito lang sa Cotabato City, lang sa mga tarang activities, ang hindi daw reporting.
Salamat, Tata. Ang malungkot no yung ang malungkot binaril sa kanyang karinderya, no? Okay. Grabe na. Sa area po ng pikit. Okay, salamat, Tata. Okay, break muna tayo and then balikan po natin ng ibang balita, no? Okay. Okay, ang oras natin ngayon, 44 minutos po, pasado po alas 8 na, no? Okay, sandali lang. Okay, punta tayo sa General Santos balita. Ang General Santos City Confidential Fund Spending ayon po kay Councilor Jane Rivera, tumaas po ng 166.66%, no? Or 50 million pesos ang confidential fund sa General Santos. Okay, kung ato kini kumpara sa 2029, no? Okay, so 2019 ay 30 million lang po ang confidential fund spending. Okay, sa 2020 ay 30 million din, no? Okay, 2021, 30 million din. Okay, sa 2022, ayan po 30 million, no? Okay. Ayan, kalahati po ng time po ni Pacquiao term, itong si Lorelai Pacquiao. Okay, dilaw sa kanya, no? Okay, 30 million 2022, hati sila ng Rivera team, mga kababayan, no? Okay, sa 2023, tumaas po ang spending po ng confidential fund, no? Okay, naging 60 million ang gastos po sa confidential fund, no? Okay, sa 2024, 2024, okay, umabot po ng 80 million po ang gastos po ni Madam Mayor Lorelai Pacquiao, mga suki, no? So, comparative study, okay, from 2019, 30 million, 2010, 30 million, 2021, 30 million, okay, and then hati po sa 2022, 30 million. Pag-upo po ni Madam, Lorelai Pacquiao ay umabot po ng 60 million, no? Pagdating sa 2024, okay, 80 million po ang budget po, mga suki, no? Okay, comparative spending ito, no? Ayan. So, okay. Ilang araw ba yun na 125 days ba yun kay Sara Duterte? Okay, mabilis pala i-spend. Okay, disburse itong confidential fund, mga kababayan, no? Okay. Madali, intelligence fund, no? Confidential intelligence fund. So, yan po ang General Santos ngayon, no? Okay, so, okay, ang mga taga General Santos po ang mas lalong nakakaalam yan, mga suki, no? Okay, kasi matagal ako dyan po sa General Santos. Ayan. Okay, public opinion tayo, no? Okay, tingnan natin kung ano ang public opinion nito. Okay.
In spite of Israel being accused of committing genocide and ethnic cleansing, and despite the huge protests that have taken place around the world condemning Tel Aviv for its continued killing of Palestinians in Gaza, domestically speaking, Israeli seems very much in support of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his war cabinet.
Okay, makinig tayo sa opinion, no? Opinion po.
What is the narrative that is taking place within Israeli public opinion? And is there an alternative one to the current discourse that continues to support the killing of thousands of children in the besieged Gaza Strip? And what role is Israeli media playing in this current conflict? Let's take a sidebar and talk to Gideon Levy, a veteran reporter and journalist based in Israel. Mr. Gideon Levy, thank you very much for joining us on Sidebar. I want to start by asking you about the current public opinion in Israel. What many have described as attempts of ethnic cleansing and genocide in Gaza have gone on for more than 40 days now. There is a very clear division within the Israeli public opinion with regards to those who are calling for a ceasefire or a prioritization of releasing hostages through negotiations. And there is another side of that divide that is calling for a continuation in the relentless bombardments and attacking of Gaza. How is that playing out in Israel right now?
You described it very precisely, but on top of it, it must be clear that there is almost a wall-to-wall consensus about the justification of this war. And there is an overall objection to stop it now, unless you can release the hostages. You see, Israel after the 7th turned into being more nationalistic, more militaristic, and more aggressive than it was even before. And this happens in every war, but in this war you saw it much more stronger because the pain, the shock, the humiliation of the 7th were so big that nobody pays attention now to the losses of the other side, the suffer of Gaza, the agony of Gaza, the thousands and thousands of children and innocent people who are killed. All this is hardly touched. Israel is now focused into achieving two goals, according to the government. As you know, one is to crush Hamas, the other one is to release all the hostages. There might be a point, and maybe we reach already this point, in which Israel will have to choose between the two, at least in priorities. And here comes really what you had so well described, that there are those who think that continuing now in the same space, in the same speed, might endanger the hostages, and by others, this is unacceptable.
I wanna just take a step back and ask you to maybe deconstruct a little bit the Israeli psyche, right? You mentioned there that the pain and humiliation that is felt by Israeli society post October the 7th is so much that it has driven large sections, or the majority of it, towards being even more militarized and more violent, right? Now, what happened on October 7th, according to Israeli counts, is roughly somewhere between 1,200 and 1,400 Israelis were killed in it. There is a famous Jewish historian, Noam Finkelstein, who was mentioning about, for example, the number of Palestinians who were killed in Operation Cast Lead, or the war in Gaza, in 2008, which was very similar. There are many, many examples of Protective Edge, of Pillar of Defense, of massacres of Sabra and Shatila, of Deir Yassin, and so forth. Why is it that the Israeli psyche cannot understand, do you think, that the pain and suffering that has been inflicted by the Israeli military over decades on the Palestinians is what drove Palestinian fighters to do what they did on October 7th, but they expect the world to understand that what happened on October 7th justifies what they're doing now?
Here you touch the Israeli psyche, as you said, in which Israelis don't measure the lives of Palestinians equally as life of Jews. That's the matter of fact. They cover it up with all kinds of excuses and explanations. But by the end of the day, if you scratch under the skin, you will not see a deep understanding that we are exactly equal, and we also carry some responsibility and accountability for what's happening now? No, Israelis don't bother to get into it because then they have really a problem of human rights, of crimes of war, of crimes against humanity. So there is nothing cheaper than Palestinians' lives in Israel. You see it all times, and you see it especially in times of war. Having said this, they add themselves also something which cannot be ignored, the fact that the 1,400 Israelis were slaughtered really in purpose, in a very barbaric way, part of them. You cannot, no one of them was killed by mistake. They came to kill, no other purpose but to kill. And they did it without any distinction, from babies to old people, to women, to men, to sick people, to soldiers, to civilians, to some Israeli Palestinians, to some Bedouins, to some foreigners, everyone. Now, the intention means something, and this does not cover up the crimes that Israel is committing, but it must be also taken into account, and the Israelis take it into account as a.
On that note, and I know you've touched upon it, but just to clarify, I mean, if we're to take the intention as a very significant and important element within this, the intention to kill, do you not believe that the Israeli military has intended to kill as many as it has killed over the past 40 days? Let's not talk about 75 years, just 40 days, when it attacks hospitals, when it attacks schools, when it attacks UN facilities. Is that intention not very clear?
I always say, I don't know if they intend to kill so many children, if they intend to kill so many patients, if they intend to kill so many women, but I know very clearly they don't intend enough not to kill them. And this is bad enough.
Fair enough, but I think when you come to assess a military as advanced and sophisticated as Israelis, with precision missiles, with drones, with all of that, it's very difficult for an objective assessment to see anything but a clear intention, particularly when we're talking about more than 4,500 children. I want to move on to another division here in society. We saw video over the past couple of days of Israeli settlers using their cars to run over protesters in Israel who are calling for a ceasefire in order for the release of those prisoners. How is that dynamic going? Okay, we can see the animosity between the Israeli side and the Palestinian side. It's very understandable with regards to what is going on. But the Israeli animosity within Israel, how is that playing up? Do you think that the longer this war goes on, the longer these attacks continue, that the more fractured and the bigger the threat is to the fabric of Israeli society from within the Israeli society?
Until now, it was on the contrary, because Israel came to this war as divided as never before. And the war had some dynamics of getting Israelis together and putting aside all the arguments and all the divisions. Don't forget that we are getting to this war after a year of non-stop demonstrations, one against the other, half of the people against the government against half of the people, and we came very loaded. The war played a role of unification, at least for the time it's going on, except of the settlers, obviously. These violent militias, for them the war is money time. For them the war is the opportunity of their lives to transfer more Palestinians, to take more lands, to kill, to murder, to steal, to do whatever possible, because nobody pays attention to them now. But for them, the Israeli leftists are traitors. So, by the way, they are also attacking leftists, but less than in former wars. I must tell you, I am much more secure in this war than in former wars. In 2014, I needed a bodyguard to walk in the street.
Why is that you feel more secure in this war?
Maybe because I aged, Maybe because I'm less provocative this time, and maybe because we are, in a way, more united right now because everyone understands that what happened on the 7th is something that Israel cannot ignore.
So here is the point, because you mentioned a distinction between what you described as the Israeli left and other segments of society. What defines being on the left in Israel? What is it that defines a progressive Israeli?
First of all, there is really very little left out of it. This war, if there is one clear effect, which might change, but for the time being, all the so-called left that I know totally changed. They lost hope. It's unbelievable. The biggest activists for peace, for understanding, for coexistence, for equality, most of them say, oh, we were wrong. We are now waking up to a new reality and we cannot go on. So it's very little left from the Israeli left. Within the Israeli left, you have to make a very clear division because between the Zionist left and the real left, as I call it, because the Zionist left, in my view, is not only responsible for most of Israeli policies in the last 50 years, including obviously the settlements and most of the wars. The Zionist left, as a Zionist movement, still believes in Jewish superiority. Any leftist cannot support Jewish superiority or any superiority, any ethnic superiority. And by this, it means that if you are a Zionist in those days, you cannot be a leftist, in my view.
So here you said something important. You said that the left prior to October 7th was a lot more vocal. Now there's a lot of them who view that they were wrong to be more vocal about trying to find some sort of coexistence. Okay, and I'm assuming, correct me if I'm wrong here, that this is the insinuation is because of the attack of October 7th that this scared them so much or was so provocative or was so horrendous as far as they're concerned that this made them reevaluate their views. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. I want to ask something here. October 7th, again, was one day where 1,400, according to Israelis, people were killed. On the flip side, why is it so difficult for Israelis to understand that decades and decades of mass killings, of massacres, of bombs, of illegal blockade, besiegement, of what organizations have called as apartheid, of child imprisonment, why can't they see that drives an indigenous population to take up arms? Why can't they view the source of the problem? Why are they only coming on October? Why does their history start on October 7th?
I can easily join your questions and ask the same questions because I am not part of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm far of being part of it, and the only problem is that I'm much more lonely than before, and I was very lonely before, but now I'm really very lonely in my views, and it's becoming harder and harder to find any partners for anything. But I must tell you, something happened on the 7th, and I may understand them, because it's not only counting the killed people, it was also the way it was done. It's hard to ignore it. We did horrible things throughout the years, but there was never such a barbaric attack. Also, because of technology, we have our pilots who can push a button and kill 100 children with one bomb. They don't even see them, and it is supposed to be less barbaric than.
To be fair, there was. I mean, Deir Yassin, you had pregnant women who were rounded up and lined up and shot. There are ones that, I mean, that before technology, before drones and stuff, there is clear instances of that, to be fair.
Absolutely, but not ever since 48. 48, horrible things happened on both sides. I'm speaking about the years of the state when it had an organized, well-established army. We did horrible things, but what happened on Saturday the 7th was in many ways more horrible. But, you know, by the end of the day, I totally agree with you. Why should I argue with you when I agree with you?
No, I'm asking you, do you understand why? Like, I want to know, Is it because society is militarized in a way? Is it because there is an absence, as you mentioned, of an alternative narrative? Is it because of the social conditioning that's done through media? What is it that makes you so lonely? Why is it that there isn't more of a discourse around the source of things?
There are a few reasons. I try to be brief. First of all, because the Israeli left was never solid. And every small change immediately insulted the left. Immediately he gave up and he said, "Oh, I was wrong. They are so terrible. We don't have a partner. We missed all those years in believing in them, and they disappointed us. They misled us. They, the Palestinians." So the Israeli left is a set of small, very devoted groups whom I highly appreciate, but the Zionist left was never solid, never. So therefore, it is so fragile. When something happened, immediately you find nothing. Secondly, Israel was shocked by what happened. I mean, the Israeli arrogance couldn't believe that such an attack can be possible at all. And we were shocked and humiliated and astonished and obviously also beaten. The only outlet is to start to put everything on those, as they call them, animals who did it without seeing the context. To mention the context today in Israel is almost illegal. You cannot mention the context, like you cannot pay any solidarity or empathy to the people of Gaza. It's almost illegal. I mean, people who tweeted some sympathy or empathy or spoke about the context were called to the police in Israel, especially if they were Israeli Palestinians, but also some Jews. So the atmosphere is very aggressive right now, very nationalistic, and above all, very non-tolerant. There is no tolerance for alternative voices right now, and this is the outcome.
Do you think that a part of the reason for the absence of that discourse, as I mentioned, is also a lack of pressure from the international community? Or let me put it another way: the fact that an administration like the Biden administration can come out and say there are no red lines for what Israel's to do. There's never been any pressure from the European Union or the United States to find a partner for peace, as there has been, for example, on the Palestinians. No one's ever cut off funding for the Israelis. Nobody's ever said, boycotted or whatever an Israeli official from that perspective. Do you think the kind of biased nature of international diplomacy that favors Israel is a reason why then Israel is going to say, or Israeli politicians are going to say, well, why do we need to make concessions? Why do we need to start thinking about having a different opinion if no one's forcing us to?
Absolutely, no doubt about it. And it's not about pressure, it's about practical steps, which the world never took. Never. Can you believe that Russia, after 3 weeks of invading Crimea, was exposed to sanctions? Did you ever hear any American or European politician who speaks about sanctions over Israel? I mean, it's even unheard of. Sure, as long as Israel wasn't and isn't and will not be punished for its crimes. And I'm not speaking about this war, I'm speaking about all those years of apartheid and occupation. Then the Israelis asked themselves, why would we change? I mean, everything is so wonderful. The world is hugging us. Israel is the darling of the West. We get more money from the Americans than any other state in the world. We have everything. Why would we change? And therefore, it is also the responsibility of the international community to change once and for all. I don't see signs that it's going to happen this time.
I want to just shift back to another aspect of public opinion in Israel. There was a report that came out, I believe it was Haaretz, an investigation that showed that a military Apache helicopter or some sort of helicopter shot at the music goers in the festival that was on the border with Gaza and could have killed some of the goers there. There have been reports that some of the hostages that were in the kibbutzes were killed by Israeli tank fire that was targeting the Hamas militants who were inside, but had no issue of killing them as well. We know that there is the Hannibal doctrine that the Israeli military adopted several years ago, which essentially dictates to the military to kill even if its own citizens, rather than allow for them to be captives. How is that playing out? Are people in Israel, aghast or at least opposed to the fact that some of those who were killed on October 7th were killed by Israeli munition and Israeli soldiers, or is that not even getting any sort of traction within Israeli society?
Nothing whatsoever, and for very good reasons. I don't think there was any doctrine. The Israeli army on the 7th, along the whole day, was totally helpless, shocked, paralyzed, and whatever they did was not planned and was disconnected from any kind of doctrine. They were just absent. And even if there was a helicopter who did it, which I have no doubts about it, they didn't do it in a framework of a doctrine. They did it in a framework of not knowing what to do. Many ask why weren't there many more helicopters on time in all the settlements where it happened, and not one helicopter. And by the end of the day, let's not cover it up. In this party, hundreds and hundreds of young people were murdered.
Mm-hmm.
Even if a helicopter killed some of them, what does it change? What difference does it make? Most of them, and we see all the videos, most of them were shot in cold blood by the Hamas fighters. You cannot ignore it.
No, it doesn't change. No, I'm asking it from the perspective, not about changing. I'm asking it from a perspective, again, one of the reasons what I want to get through this discussion is for our viewers to understand a bit more about the Israeli society and the psyche. It doesn't change a reality, but what it does do is that for a citizen of a country, the idea is that you have trust in your military and in your politicians, that they put your life first, that they will protect you first. But if it transpires that the idea of the military or whoever's giving the orders or whoever's pressing the button is more concerned to ensure that there is just total death, regardless of the cost, whether even that cost is of your own nationals, then surely there should then be some sort of questioning from the society as to how fit those military generals are or that war cabinet is. So are those questions being asked is what I'm wondering.
So let me tell you, the face in the army was totally crashed on the 7th, but not because of what you described, because of its absence, not because of its activities. The army wasn't there. First of all, the army was surprised with the most sophisticated intelligence in the world, with all the electronic devices, with endless budgets that go to the intelligence. Finally, it was total surprise. An attack which was planned a year was totally fall as a surprise on Israeli army. Secondly, it took the Israeli army hours and hours and hours until they knew what to do, where to go. It's embarrassing how impotent, how paralyzed was the army. So this one incident in which one helicopter shot or didn't shoot is totally ignored here in the discourse, because the phase between Israel, public opinion, and its army is deeply broken, but not because of this.
Okay, on that, so as you say, it's been more than a month, more than 40 days now that Israel has been bombing Gaza. We know the death toll of the civilians. There's no clear death toll of how many Hamas fighters or Islamic Jihad fighters have been killed. There's no clear evidence that any of the major figures, Mohammed al-Dayf, Abu Ubaidah, or anybody from those fighters have been killed. So is there no question being asked within Israeli society as to how effective or how efficient this military campaign has been? When, yes, and especially when you couple it with, for example, videos of the soldiers showing a calendar of the days of the week in Arabic and claiming that this is Hamas fighters, or showing metal equipment or weaponry in an MRI room where people start questioning the validity of it. On the faith, with regards to the faith of Israeli public opinion with regards to the military, beyond the destruction that they're seeing, that's in terms of the hospitals and schools and homes, is nobody asking actually how much of Hamas's capacity has been actually damaged?
Not yet. Not yet, because the feeling is that it's on its way. To tell you if it's justified or not, I have my doubts already. I had my doubts from the first day that this war will achieve anything. But, my voice doesn't count. Most of the Israelis don't ask it yet because the feeling is that this time they are going really to crush them and it will take more time. So in this framework, those questions are not asked at all. We are in all this conversation totally ignoring the role of Israeli media in all those questions that you mentioned.
Okay, please explain. Yeah, please can you expand on that? I wanna hear more about that.
I think Israeli media throughout the years, not only in wartime, throughout the years, Israeli media is playing a real criminal role by collaborating, first of all, with the occupation, ignoring the occupation for decades, ignoring it, normalizing it. I don't know how much you know the Israeli media, but in times of so-called routine, peaceful days, when Palestinians are killed by dozens in the West Bank, you hardly hear about it. And when you hear about it, it's always, like a total marginal piece of news. The Israeli media is a free media, by the way, but they do so only because of commercial reasons, which is much worse. They don't want to bother the readers and the viewers with too many facts about the real ugly face of Israel when it comes to the apartheid and to the occupation. They know that they don't want to see it, and they serve them, give them this service of ignoring the reality. In times of war, it's much worse. If you would have known how little is shown on Israeli TV concerning the atrocities in Gaza, you will be shocked. It is hardly mentioned. No images, no footage, nothing. And if yes, we are both journalists, it's all about framing. It will always be as a marginal fact with all kinds of explanations, all the children, all the women, all the horrible scenes in the hospitals. Nothing of it is shown on Israeli media. And that helps the Israelis to live in this denial.
Even in the presence of social media platforms and the age of digital media, is that not having an impact, at least at presenting a different alternative narrative to the Israeli public, or you don't think it's that effective?
It would be effective if the Israeli media would be interested in it. You cannot impose it. Israeli public opinion doesn't want to see, doesn't want to know, doesn't want to be exposed to all those things. Let us concentrate in our victims, in our agony, in our suffering, our mourning, and don't bother us with the other.
I have two final questions. One, with regards to, again, with public opinion here. We've seen massive protests calling for ceasefires, for a ceasefire around the world, right? So the biggest protests with regards to this issue in the United Kingdom and Washington and many other places as well. It's a two-part question. One is, has this been reported widely in Israeli media, or at least is the Israeli public, or a sizable amount of it, aware of this? And two, does that concern them, that the narrative that they assumed, many in the West in particular, had for decades, which was that Israel's the victim, now is shifting, at least to a certain extent? Does that worry them?
Yes. First of all, this was covered, and widely. I mean, it was everywhere. This was covered properly, I must say. But the Israelis have always all kinds of walls of protection. The whole world is anti-Semite. No matter what we do, they will always hate us. So why would we care about it? In any case, they're anti-Semites. So why should we make a fuss out of it? That's the way of thinking. It's all about anti-Semitism. which puts immediately the blame on the critic, not on us. It's you who are anti-Semites, and therefore you should check yourself. You are immoral. We are very moral. That's the way of thinking.
There is a curve usually to everything in life, right? So things starts off and they'll peak and then they come down and so forth. Currently now, what I've understood from our discussion is that the Israeli society and general psyche in Israel is at a peak with regards to being very militarized, essentially supportive of the current policies of the government, demanding some sort of retribution to what happened on October 7th. But the longer these things go, particularly when they have a cost on the economy, they have a cost of lives to soldiers, to others, and so forth, then the more difficult it is to maintain. How do you foresee the coming, few weeks, or let's say a couple of months, with regards to Israeli society?
It depends on two factors: the price and the achievements. If the price will get bigger and bigger in terms of killed soldiers, in terms of the economy, in terms of steps that the world will take, even symbolic ones, then there will be some kind of fatigue, and then people start to ask questions. But we are not there, we are far of being there. If, on the other hand, the achievements will be, I don't know how to call it, spectacle, the hostages will be released, Yahya Sinwar and Muhammad Def will be assassinated, and things like this, you'll get more support to this war. So right now, the Israeli public opinion is still silent, is still supportive, unless people will feel that the price is too high and the benefit is too small.
Final question before I leave you, Mr. Gideon Levy. It's been often portrayed by the Israeli government and media that there is what they say no partner for peace on the Palestinian side, right? Even large sections of the Republican Party and the right wing in the United States, or even some places in Europe, have said this for many years. Do you believe that there is a partner for peace on the political spectrum in Israel? Is there an Israeli partner for peace?
Right now, not whatsoever. But I claim that for many years there was not a real partner. And more than this, even those who were presented as partners were not real partners, because none of them, including Yitzhak Rabin, including everyone, didn't have the courage or the understanding what a great step they should take. They believe that in small steps we can somehow get through it. But no, none of them understood the meaning of occupation, of apartheid. None of them treated the Palestinians as equal human beings with equal, totally equal national and civil rights. And therefore, there was never a partner. There was also, right now, there is also no partner in the Palestinian side, let's face it. But the Palestinians, at least for a while, seem to have a partner, and they might have a partner now. The only problem is that he's in jail. And finally, to speak now about the peace process is really a grotesque.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. I wish we did have more time, but we've come to the end of the show. Appreciate your time. Thank you very much for joining us on Sidebar, Mr. Gideon Levy.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, magkano isang news lang, no? Maghanap tayo ng isang news and then overtime na tayo naman ngayon. Okay. Okay, ang Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas in cutting rate by 100 BPS mga kababayan, no? Okay, so puntahan po natin ang balita ito. Isang balita lang and then i-close natin ang programa, no? Okay. Okay, Manila, Philippines, the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas is expected to slash its policy rate by as much as 100 basis point this year as inflation continues to soften and return to the excuse me, no? To the target. Okay, sandali lang. Okay, ibig sabihin po na meet ang target, no? Ayan. Okay, in a television interview with the Bloomberg's yesterday, Finance Secretary Benjamin Jokno said he expect the central bank to pencil in a rate cut of up to 100 basis points this year. So 2024 mga kaibigan natin, no? Okay. Okay, Jokno was the BSP governor during the Duterte administration and currently sit in the Monetary Board. The Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas ay data-dependent and we observe what's happening abroad, principally what's happening at the Fed, U.S. Federal Reserve, Jokno said. Ayan. So, a 75 basis point on cut by the Fed this year could actually be matched by the central bank or even 100 basis point, he said. Sabi po ni Jokno. Ayan. Okay, so 75 point basis cut by the Fed this year, could actually be matched by the central bank or even 100 basis point, he said. Target, the biggest market lead to 2024 is the continued expectation that the Fed will cut, rate as early as March. Jokno also banking on the continued downtrend in inflation with soared to 6% in 2023 amid more expensive food and oil prices. Ayan. Last year, in inflation print also breached Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas 2 to 4% target for the second straight year. December 2023 inflation of 3.9% marked the first time the headline rate settled within the target band since March 2022. So yan po ang balita po ng Central Bank mga suki pamagitan ni Secretary Jokno, no? Inflation might increase slightly in the second quarter because of a base effects. But for the whole year of 2024, it would be written It would be within the target band of a 2 to 4%, so that is is a good news, Jokno said, no? As of now, the benchmark interest rate is at a 6.5%, the highest in 16 years, no? I see at a 5.5% by the end of the 2024. The timing, of course, will be data dependent, and probably toward the second semester this year, Jokno said. So yan po ang balita po galing po sa BSP, Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas po mga kababayan. No? So maaari daw mag-cut ng 100 BPS mga suki. No? Okay, yan po ang katapusan ng balita natin. Actually, overtime na tayo. Okay, mga 8 minutos po overtime mga suki. No? Okay, ito na. Okay, natapos po ang balita natin sa gabing ito. Okay, magpaalam tayo dati dito sa programa natin. Okay, maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat. Okay, dito po sa programa Halo-Halo Special Opinion Balita at iba pa. Kasama po sa Bisyo Publiko Tinig ng Mamamayan at saka ugnayan ng mamamayan sa mga reklamo nila po mga kababayan. No? Okay, wala tayong masamang tinapay rito sa ating programa. Okay, paalam tayo sa ating mga suki-suki. Okay, nakinig sa atin. This has been Habs Lamahan lamang po, no? Okay, balik tayo naman bukas. Wednesday, no? Okay, bukas. So, bye-bye na. Kawawa po ang pinatay ng diyan sa pikit, no? Okay.
Ang programa ito ay public service sa kahanginan at trabaho